to this module on how to prepare yourself for success in English. So today we're going to look at phase 1.1, which is how to prepare your mind for success in English. So really, our mind is the only thing that we can have 100% of control over. That's why I think it's important to start with this when we're preparing ourselves for success in English. So the quote I've chosen for today's module is, "Everything is hard before it is easy." And I think that's completely true when it comes to learning a language. So I remember when I was learning Spanish 14 years ago when I moved to Spain, and I listened to the native people speaking in Madrid, and I thought, this is impossible. Literally, I'm never going to understand anyone. They're speaking far too quickly, and it just seemed like an absolutely impossible task ahead of me. And then maybe 6 or 7 months later, one day I was listening to the radio, and I realized that it didn't matter anymore if it was Spanish or English, that I could understand what the person was saying without having to think about it. So suddenly something that was really, really hard, like almost impossible, became really easy. And that was just a wonderful feeling, and just something that I hope will motivate you to keep going, because I know that one day English will be easy for you too. So let's take a look at the objective for this module. The objective for this module is how to overcome these limiting beliefs and communicate confidently in English. So limiting beliefs are what happens in our mind when we just feel like something is impossible, that we're never going to be able to do something, that something is unachievable for us. And those kind of limiting beliefs are completely detrimental to learning English, okay? We need to overcome these limiting beliefs in order to become confident English speakers. So on this slide, we can see a bunch of limiting beliefs or negative thoughts that my students have told me over the years. This is just a small selection of them. Some of them are at an individual level. So I'll never lose my accent, or I'm going to make a fool of myself in front of my boss. But some of them are on like a society or a cultural level. So everyone knows that Spanish people are terrible at speaking English, okay? These kind of limiting beliefs are going to make life really, really difficult when it comes to learning English, because if your mind is constantly thinking these things, then you're just going to give up, because you're just going to feel like it's something impossible. When our minds are facing something which seems threatening or difficult, or in a high stress situation, literally our brain decides to go into survival mode. So if we're thinking, this is impossible, this is terrible, this is stressful, I'm going to make a fool of myself, our brain is literally going to say, okay, you're having a terrible time, so I'm going to go into survival mode to protect you and protect myself. When the brain goes into survival mode, all of the blood literally goes into our hands and feet, because we're ready to escape or to fight. So all of the blood that we need to help our brain function, for example, to learn English or communicate in English in that moment, literally disappears. So it's really important to stay calm, be kind to our brains, and try to stay positive when we're learning English or in the moment that we want to communicate in English. In fact, over the years, being an English teacher, I've heard so many times these kind of limiting beliefs. I decided to do one of my podcast episodes about just that. So I interviewed some English friends and family here in the UK, and I asked them, how do they feel if a foreign person speaks to them in English in any situation? Does it make them feel uncomfortable, or do they feel grateful that the other person is making an effort, or what feelings do they have? And in the podcast, 100% of the people I asked were really positive. Anyway, it's easy for me to say that to you, and really the important point is that you analyze this yourself and you make the effort to change these limiting beliefs from the inside, okay? So let's see how we can transform limiting beliefs into limitless possibilities. The first thing is to identify and accept that there are limiting beliefs and negative thoughts related to speaking English. Okay, so we have to accept that, but we also have to identify them. Okay, so when a limiting belief comes to our head, You have to identify what it is, write it down, or just reflect and think about this limiting belief, okay? The second step is to reframe the limiting belief in a proactive way, okay? So this is kind of to get out of the victim mentality. So instead of saying like, oh, English is impossible, I'm never going to advance my professional career because I'm terrible at languages and I'm never going to be able to speak English well, we could say, okay, my English level is not very good at the moment. What am I going to do to improve it? Okay. Or, for example, you attend a meeting in English and you feel that what you said wasn't very clear and you know how to say it better, but you were nervous, so you went blank in the moment that you had to say it. At the end of the meeting, don't punish yourself. Just think, okay, that was difficult. Yes, I could have spoken better. I know how to speak better, but I did X, Y, and Z really well. So I'm very happy with that. And I can improve A, B, and C by taking more one-to-one classes, by listening to more business English podcasts, etc. Okay, so identify the limiting belief and reframe it into something proactive to help yourself overcome this limiting belief and avoid it happening again in the future. The third point is to celebrate what I call your little wins. So little wins are these moments which often we don't even appreciate that have happened, you know. So I think often in society or in life now, we're people are celebrating big achievements and big things. We're surrounded on social media by people who do incredible things, and it can make us feel quite inferior. And I think it's really important to have a culture of celebrating little wins. Okay, so in this case, I really want you to get into the habit of celebrating your little wins. For example, the business meeting I mentioned before. Okay, it didn't go perfectly well, but I managed to speak a lot clearer than in my last meeting. I found the vocabulary faster than my last meeting, or even I attended a business meeting, and normally I completely avoid business meetings in English like the plague. Okay, celebrate these moments and be proud of yourself. Okay, and this can help you try and change these limiting beliefs into something which is more reasonable and positive and kinder to yourself. And the last point is that really we're not aiming for perfection when we speak a second language, okay? The goal is clear and confident communication. Nobody speaks English perfectly, not even native speakers. So you're not expected to speak perfect English either. We just want you to be clear and concise and confident when you're speaking, okay? Also, you're not alone, okay? Apart from myself and the Breezelingo team, who are completely 100% dedicated to helping you along the way to becoming a confident speaker, a very good friend of mine called Anna Maltese, she's a coach for people who are struggling with their English. And she wrote this incredible book called El Club de los Ingles Nivel Medio. I highly recommend that everyone reads this book. It's amazing and it's so positive, and it makes you realize you aren't alone, that a lot of people have exactly the same limiting beliefs as you, and there are ways of overcoming them. Okay, so read the book because it's fantastic, and Anna gives you a lot of advice on how to overcome these limiting beliefs. So here are some activities to finish this module of this course, and to try and get you thinking about these limiting beliefs, how to overcome them, and apply this in the rest of your English learning process, not only for the video to make me happy, it's to apply this to actually when you're learning English and help you to become a confident speaker. Okay, so the first activity is to use the worksheet, Transforming Your Limiting Beliefs, to reframe your own limiting beliefs. There's some examples in the worksheet on how to do that. Secondly, I really want you to celebrate your little wins with us. Okay, you can send me them by email or even on social media if you want to look for our social media accounts and use the hashtag #MyEnglishLittleWin and tell us all about it and celebrate it, and we'll celebrate it with you, because anything you achieve in English is amazing and wonderful. read Anna's book because it's a game changer. I'll leave the link in the materials section so you can go to her website and buy the book on Amazon. And also, I recommend that you listen to my podcast episode called Lose the Fear. Okay, so you can listen to the reactions from the British people I interviewed that I mentioned earlier in this video. Okay, the podcast's in English, so that can count for some extra English contact time for this week. Okay, so good luck with these limiting beliefs. Try to be kind to yourself. Try to appreciate all of the amazing work you've done so far in English. Just being on this course and taking the time to do this means that you are achieving a lot more than a lot of other people. So really well done. And all of this is going to help you become a confident and clear English speaker. See you in the next video.